So, welcome to our deep dive today. We are stepping into a space where 50 years of ancient mastery meets, well, 21st century practicality.
Yeah, it is a massive topic today.
It really is. We are looking at the life's work of a practitioner known as Osman, the Blind Yogi. And his whole mission is to give away his entire life's work completely for free.
Right, these are strategies that clients worldwide literally pay millions of dollars to access, and he's putting it out there with no gatekeeping.
No premium paywalls, no secret initiations, just this really pure, fast-acting transformation that you can do from your living room.
Exactly.
But before we get into the actual methods, I want you to imagine something. Imagine spending like 2 hours a day, every single day, for 50 years.
That's a staggering amount of time.
Right. And you're doing this just trying to reach the absolute pinnacle of spiritual enlightenment. You are meditating, you are fasting, you're studying ancient texts.
All with one goal?
Exactly. One singular goal, reaching the highest energy center, the crown chakra.
Yeah, the apex.
So imagine you finally reach it. You experience this ultimate, untethered cosmic bliss. And then the universe essentially taps you on the shoulder and says, the whole point was actually to go right back down and deal with the coworker who keeps stealing your lunch from the communal fridge.
Right. It's wild. It completely upends the way most of us have been taught to think about spiritual progress.
Oh, totally. Because we are so conditioned by this linear upward mobility model.
Yeah, you start at the messy bottom and you just climb the ladder rung by rung to get to the pristine top.
And the assumption is always that once you ascend, you just stay there.
Because why wouldn't you? We absolutely love the idea of ascending away from our problem.
You do. But today's deep dive is a massive pivot. We are exploring a worldview that takes that vertical ladder, completely snaps it in half, and turns it into a horizontal balancing scale.
That's a great way to put it.
Because what if the highest state of being, like the ultimate finish line of human development, isn't in the clouds at all?
Right.
What if it's right in the dead center of your chest?
So to understand how radical this pivot is, we really need to understand exactly whose blueprint we're looking at today. The context of who Osman is completely frames how we interact with his material.
Right, because we aren't just looking at someone who, took a weekend retreat in Bali and decided to start a wellness brand.
No, not at all. We are talking about 50 years of rigorous, continuous practice.
50 years.
Yeah, and he operates this platform where he shares this truly global, cross-cultural synthesis of wellness strategies.
And I really want to be clear about the level of dedication we are talking about here. He achieved his first state of samadhi, which, for those who don't know, is a highly advanced state of profound meditative absorption at age 19.
19. That's incredible.
It is. And he has maintained lifestyle protocols that demand up to 18 hours of daily practice.
And there is a deeply compelling physical reality to his current teachings that we have to mention.
Oh, I mean his eyesight.
Yes. Osman has been permanently blind since May of 2023. But because he possessed normal eyesight for the vast majority of his life, he retains these incredibly vivid, foundational visual memories.
Right. So when you read his transcripts or listen to his descriptions of, energetic states or internal physiology, he speaks with the intense precision of someone who has known sight.
Exactly. He is translating past visual knowledge into a highly specialized current reality. It makes his teachings incredibly grounded.
Which brings us back to his core mission. He wants to completely demystify these ancient yoga sciences.
And he emphasizes a strictly scientific approach.
But okay, before we get into the heart center and all of that, I have to hit the brakes for a second. We need to talk about his clinical specialization.
Ah, right, the bioenergy healing.
Yeah, because this is where my materialist, skeptical brain starts flashing red warning lights. He describes himself as a master bioenergy healer, specializing strictly in critical care, recovery, and terminal illnesses.
It's a massive claim.
It is, and he talks about having telepathic capabilities and using remote healing methods based on quantum mechanics and quantum entanglement.
Yeah.
So how do we, as people who generally trust modern allopathic medicine, interact with a source that claims to remotely transfer vital energy to someone with a terminal illness? I mean, it feels like we were walking right up to the edge of pseudoscience.
I get that. It's a completely necessary boundary to test. Yeah. And to Osman's credit, what's fascinating here is that he tests himself right out of the gate.
He does have that huge disclaimer.
Exactly. The very first thing he establishes, and this is a strict, non-negotiable disclaimer in his practice, is that his therapies are all natural and absolutely not a replacement for medical treatment.
Right. He insists that anyone with a medical condition must consult a licensed medical professional.
Yes, he is not telling vulnerable people to throw away their prescriptions or cancel their chemotherapy.
Which is such a huge relief, honestly, because the wellness space is notoriously dangerous when it comes to that stuff.
It really is. But even with that disclaimer, we still have to impartially analyze the actual mechanism he's proposing.
Right. From a strictly psychological and bioenergetic standpoint, how does an energy practice actually aid someone in critical care? What is the actual how behind the what?
Well, we have to look at it through the lens of psychoneuroimmunology, layered with his concept of the human biofield.
Okay, psychoneuroimmunology. Break that down for us.
So Osman operates on a paradigm where a 90% success rate in improving one's internal state isn't a miracle, it's just a biological consequence of optimization.
Optimization of what, exactly?
Of the nervous system. Modern lifestyles systematically deplete our natural bodily energies. When you are terrified, stressed, or sick, your body is locked in a sympathetic nervous system state.
The fight or flight response.
Exactly. Cortisol is just flooding your system. And biologically, cortisol actively suppresses your T cells and your overall immune function.
So you are literally bleeding out the exact energy your body desperately needs to repair itself.
Precisely. You are wasting vital resources on panic. The mechanism of his healing protocol, whether you self-initiate it through his specific breathwork or receive it, is about completely shifting that nervous system response.
Okay, so you lower the stress response.
Yes.
Yep.
By systematically cleansing the energy channels and lowering that fight or flight response through heart-centered energy conservation, you are mathematically freeing up biological resources.
So the immune system receives this massive boost not from magic, but because you stop siphoning its power toward panic.
Exactly. You remove the energetic friction. And if an individual strictly follows his structural protocols independently, their natural internal energy improves organically.
It boosts immune function naturally without even requiring external energy transfers.
Right. But then there's the remote healing and the telepathy aspect you mentioned.
Yeah, the quantum mechanics part. I mean, I know just enough about quantum physics to know that particles can mirror each other instantaneously across vast distances, quantum entanglement, right? But bridging that from a physics lab to human biology feels like a massive leap.
It is a massive leap. But it's the theoretical framework he uses to explain non-local influence.
Okay, so how does he explain it?
Well, if human consciousness and our biomagnetic fields operate on a quantum level, which is actually a theory explored by prominent physicists like Roger Penrose, then in a highly sensitive, optimized biological state, a human nervous system might pick up on subtle electromagnetic frequencies from another person.
Like even across a distance.
Yeah. And we experience tiny fractions of this all the time. We call it intuition or reading the room.
Oh, right. Like when you just know someone is staring at you before you turn around.
Exactly. Osman suggests that with 50 years of intense optimization, those microreceptions become macroreceptions, and he calls that telepathy.
Okay, let's unpack this. I think the best way for a skeptical listener to process this is to treat it like reading a deeply researched, really complex piece of hard science fiction.
That's a good analogy.
Right. You don't have to literally believe that we have warp drive technology sitting in a hangar right now to understand the profound physics of velocity and time dilation that the author is exploring.
Yeah, okay.
In that same vein, you don't need to completely dismantle your reliance on Western medicine to extract massive practical value from Osman's understanding of human energy.
Not at all. The mechanics he outlines for burnout, stress, and resilience are incredibly potent, regardless of your stance on quantum biology.
Okay, so to understand why his specific method of dealing with burnout is so revolutionary, we first have to map out the territory he is reacting against.
Right, the traditional chakra system.
Let's lay that groundwork. If you walk into a typical modern yoga studio or, pick up a mainstream book on the subject, there is a very clear hierarchy.
Very clear. Everyone is targeting the seventh energy center.
The crown chakra. Located slightly above the top of the head, it is almost universally positioned as the absolute finish line of human evolution.
It's the apex. But what's fascinating here is asking why the traditional view pushes so aggressively for the crown.
Why do you think that is?
Because it's not just a spiritual directive, it's a deep psychological urge. The crown represents total, untethered transcendence.
It's the ultimate escape hatch.
It really is. Think about the friction of human life. The grief, the mortgage payments, the physical pain, the complexities of relationships.
It's exhausting just listing it out.
Right. So the idea that you can meditate your way out of that you can
Mhm.
ascend into a state of pure cosmic bliss,
Yeah.
where none of that earthly suffering can even touch you,
Yeah.
it is an incredibly seductive narrative.
It's escapism elevated to an art form.
Yes.
But Osman introduces this completely contrarian perspective. He explicitly states that the highest center is not on the top of your head.
No.
The most important goal, the ultimate mark of mastery, is in the dead center of your body, the heart.
Which fundamentally changes the geometry of our existence. He isn't describing a ladder where you leave the bottom rungs behind to rot while you just camp out on the roof. He describes a horizontal spectrum. You have two immense gravitational forces. The upper centers are pulling you toward the spiritual and cosmic, and the lower centers are pulling you toward the dense and material.
And the heart sits right in the middle.
Precisely. It's the fulcrum. True mastery isn't escaping to one side. It is exploring both extremes and possessing the strengths to return to that pivot point.
Here's where it gets really interesting. It's like playing a massive, complex, role-playing video game.
Okay, I like where this is going.
The traditional model basically tells you that you spend your whole life grinding, fighting monsters, just trying to reach the final, highest level up in the sky.
The crown chakra level.
Exactly. And once you beat the boss at the top, you win. You roll the credits, and your character just stays in the clouds forever.
Right, game over. You won.
But Osman is arguing that reaching that final level isn't the end of the game at all. It's actually just the prologue.
Wow.
The real victory is taking all that cosmic power, all those upgraded stats you gained at the top, and walking all the way back down the mountain to the starting village. It's about bringing that energy back to the center of your chest to help the people who are still struggling.
The mechanics of that return journey are what make his system so difficult and honestly so rewarding.
But to understand how to balance that fulcrum, we can't just stare at the pivot point, right?
No, we have to examine the heavy weights sitting on either end of the scale.
Mm.
We have to explore the two extremes pulling at it, starting with the foundation.
What Osman refers to as the lower triad, the gravity of the mundane.
Exactly.
So let's detail these three lower chakras. To use the Sanskrit terms he operates with, we're talking about the Muladhara at the root, the Svadhisthana at the sacral, and the Manipura at the solar plexus.
Right, the bottom three.
According to this framework, these three centers govern the purely material, day-to-day survival mechanisms of human life.
And we need to be very specific about what survival means here, because Osman's definition is much broader than just, finding a cave and a berry bush.
Right. It's securing shelter, covering your primary basic needs, finding employment. But he also explicitly includes things that spiritual communities usually turn their noses up at.
Which is fascinating.
He includes maintaining an active social life, finding time for pleasure and relaxation, advancing your career, and deliberately increasing your wealth and power in society.
This is a major point of friction with popularized modern spirituality.
Oh, absolutely.
There is this pervasive stigma that the lower centers and all the desires associated with them, like money, influence, physical comfort, are base, unevolved, or just inherently dirty.
Yeah, the unspoken rule is often that if you are truly enlightened, you shouldn't care about getting a promotion. You should be above caring about your bank account.
Which honestly feels a bit hypocritical when the people preaching it are charging $3,000 for a weekend wellness retreat.
Right. Isn't it refreshing that an advanced yoga teacher actually acknowledges that wanting a promotion or going on a fun vacation is a valid, necessary part of your energy system?
It is incredibly refreshing.
Yeah.
Osman subverts that entire stigma. He elevates these lower centers as absolutely fundamental halves of the human equation.
He is validating the hustle.
He really is, because you cannot have a balanced pivot point if you have no grounding. If you have nothing on one side of the scale, you would just tip over.
The scale only works if there is tension.
Exactly. And I want you to consider how much energy you expend daily just managing these three lower centers.
Oh, it's immense.
Think about your own week. The background radiation of worrying about making rent, navigating a passive-aggressive boss, stressing over the cost of groceries, trying to keep a romantic relationship healthy.
That's just exhausting.
It is exhausting because it requires massive energetic output.
Yeah.
And Osman's framework is based on an incredibly complex anatomical map to explain this output.
Right, because he doesn't just talk about the standard 7 chakras.
No, he works with a system of 114 chakras and 72,000 nadis.
Okay, wait. 72,000 is a massive number. We definitely need a definition there. What exactly is a nadi in this context?
Think of a nadi as a microscopic energetic conduit.
Oh,
If a chakra is a major power hub, like a server farm, a nadi is the fiber optic cable connecting it to the rest of the grid.
got it.
In ancient Ayurvedic texts, these actually parallel the physical nervous system and the cardiovascular system.
Okay, so they are the physical pathways for the energy.
Yes, and the most important of these are the Ida and Pingala, which are the two primary superhighways winding around the spine.
And what do they represent?
They represent the masculine and feminine, or biologically speaking, the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems.
So when he says we are expending energy on our careers and our survival, he is saying we are literally pushing voltage through these 72,000 pathways.
Exactly. And if those pathways are clogged with stress, trauma, or just poor lifestyle choices,
Wow.
we experience massive friction.
Which brings up the power of absolute simplification we mentioned earlier.
Yes, this is where his specific methodology shines. Traditional systems can be overwhelmingly complex, but he uses specific breathwork methods to handle this friction.
Right, based on precise mathematical ratios found in the ancient Tamil text, the Tirumandaram.
Specifically verses 568 and 572.
Yes. He breaks this down into an accessible four-step progression to systematically cleanse those 114 chakras and 72,000 nadis.
Including the Ida and Pingala. He is essentially defragmenting your biological hard drive so that managing your lower centers doesn't burn out your system entirely.
But even with a perfectly clean system, there is a fundamental math problem here.
What do you mean?
Well, if we are constantly pouring our biological energy into surviving, paying the mortgage, and seeking status, which he says is totally valid, we are still running a deficit. We are constantly outputting.
That's true.
If we only live in those bottom three centers, we become purely materialistic, and eventually our battery just goes flat. So how does Osman suggest we balance the ledger before we burn out completely?
That deficit is exactly what forces us upward. When the material world drains us, we have to shift our energy to the upper triad to pull in new resources.
We move up to the cosmic antennas.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack these antennas. Osman breaks down the upper three centers. We have the throat, which is the Vishuddhi. We have the third eye, the Ajna, and finally the crown, the Sahasrara.
And the terminology here is deeply important to understand the mechanics. Vishuddhi translates roughly to especially pure.
So it's about purification.
Purification and expression.
Yeah.
Then Ajna translates to command or perceive, and Sahasrara translates to the thousand-petaled lotus.
1,000 petals. Is that just poetic ancient imagery?
It's not just poetry, it's an ancient blueprint for an antenna.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Think about what a petal actually does on a flower. It reaches out to catch sunlight. In this energetic framework, a petal represents a specific frequency or vibration.
So 1,000 petals implies.
An infinitely complex, hyper-receptive biological dish capable of catching an immense spectrum of cosmic frequencies.
That is fascinating. So these upper centers are essentially our reception technology. Starting with the throat, Vishuddhi, he says this deals with mystical capabilities, spiritual control, and communication with the spirit world.
Right.
Then moving to the third eye, Ajna, he says this enhances telepathic communications, intuition, and extreme creativity.
Yes.
We talked a bit about the quantum theory behind telepathy earlier, but how does the third eye specifically act as the receiver for that?
If we look at the physical location of the Ajna chakra, it corresponds directly with the pineal gland in the brain.
Ah, okay.
For centuries, various cultures have referred to this as the seat of the soul. From a modern mechanical standpoint, the pineal gland regulates our circadian rhythms by producing melatonin.
So it deeply ties our biology to the cycles of light and dark in the cosmos.
Exactly. In Osman's framework, when those 72,000 netties are clear, this center stops just passively regulating sleep and starts actively regulating quantum data.
Wow.
It becomes a processor for intuition, allowing you to synthesize vast amounts of subconscious information, microexpressions, electromagnetic shifts in a room, subtle behavioral patterns into instant conscious knowing.
It's like upgrading your brain's RAM to handle background processes instantly.
That's a perfect way to put it.
And that leads us to the ultimate receiver, the crown chakra, the 1,000-petaled lotus. This is the connection with pure cosmic energy. And I love the way Osman describes the function of this center because it completely demystifies it.
It really does.
He specifically describes the crown as a place to plug in and download energy.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it is the ultimate utility of the transcendental state. When one becomes established in these higher centers, Osman says life becomes, quote, so amazing.
Yeah, your intellectual capacities, your intuition, your overall experience of reality are enhanced to their absolute maximum threshold. You are operating with a clarity that transcends normal consciousness.
But he is incredibly pragmatic about why we actually go there. It's not just to feel amazing. It goes back to that deficit we talked about in the lower triad.
Right, because we dissipate our energy every single day.
Yes. We constantly dissipate our energy interacting with negative people and overworking. We deal with office politics. We manage our families. We sit in traffic.
We are essentially leaky vessels.
You cannot continuously output energy without a mechanism for replacing it.
Which brings up the most relatable modern analogy he uses in the text. I love this. He says, this energetic depletion is exactly like using a mobile device.
The smartphone analogy.
Yes. Think about your smartphone. You take it off the charger at 7 a.m., you run a bunch of heavy apps, you stream video, you take calls, and by 4:20 p.m., the battery is flashing red at 5%. You wouldn't just stare at the black screen and expect the phone to keep running for days without ever plugging it into the wall. You know you have to tether it to a power source.
It's brilliant because it removes all the esoteric fluff from the crown chakra. It frames it as a strict biological and energetic necessity.
But let's push that analogy further. If you use your phone while it's heavily depleted, it starts to lag, right?
It gets really slow.
It experiences thermal throttling, it gets hot, and it slows down to protect the processor. That is exactly what human burnout is.
Oh, wow. That's so true.
Our brains get hot, we lose our temper, our cognitive function drops. We are thermally throttling because our vital force is depleted.
I mean to plug in.
Exactly. Why do we expect our bodies and our emotional centers to run endlessly on empty? The crown chakra, in Osman's model, is the wall outlet. It is how you tap into an infinite cosmic grid to recharge your internal battery.
You go to the top to recharge. But, and this is the critical juncture of Osman's entire philosophy, a smartphone that is permanently plugged into the wall in your bedroom is virtually useless.
Yes.
Right. It can't go anywhere. It can't navigate you through a new city. It can't take photos on a hike. It is safe and it is fully charged, but it is functionally dead to the world.
You have to unplug it to actually use it.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the core thesis, the radical pivot.
The return journey.
Even though the crown chakra sounds like the ultimate finish line, a state where life is so amazing, Osman insists we shouldn't stay there. We have to unplug, take that massive downloaded energy, and come back down into the messiness of the world.
We have to bring all of that cosmic voltage down into the center.
Which brings us to the ultimate pivot point, the heart.
The crucible of human emotion.
Exactly. Osman's ultimate thesis is that after attaining the knowledge, after mastering the 72,000 pathways, and experiencing the profound connection of the crown, one must deliberately turn around and focus entirely on the heart.
We really need to sit with how contrarian this is. He is taking the highest, most coveted state of spiritual achievement, a state people spend their entire lives chasing and categorizing it as merely a tool.
It's just a charging station.
Exactly. It's just fuel. The actual work, the ultimate purpose of human existence, happens in the chest.
And the way he describes the heart is not some, sanitized greeting card version of love. He is brutally honest about it.
Very honest.
He says the heart is the seat of deep emotions. It's where we experience true happiness and true love, yes, but he explicitly notes it is also where we get hurt.
Yeah.
It is where you feel the physiological sting of someone speaking negative words to you. It is the literal root of where sadness and depression take root.
Let's unpack the profound vulnerability of that heart center. Think about why the traditional model wants you to escape to the crown.
Because the crown is perfectly safe.
Exactly. The cosmic void does not insult your intelligence. The universe doesn't betray your trust or lay you off from your job. The upper triad is completely insulated from human messiness.
But Osman is saying that true enlightenment requires intentionally walking back into the line of fire. You are taking the most massive, pristine cosmic energy you could possibly download, and you are channeling it directly into the most fragile, easily bruised part of your human anatomy.
Because true happiness, according to his framework, doesn't come from floating in an insulated void. It comes from love in action on Earth.
Right. He lists very grounded, practical mandates.
Yeah.
Helping society, contributing to nature, planting trees, showing compassion to animals.
But the most functionally difficult mandate he gives, the one that requires the most energy, is forgiving others.
And his breakdown of forgiveness is absolutely fascinating because he uses a very specific cross-cultural reference to explain the mechanics of it.
The Lord's Prayer.
Yes, he incorporates the Lord's Prayer from the Christian Bible. He quotes, "Forgive our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us."
And regardless of anyone's religious background, he is using this to explain a strict mechanical law of energy.
Exactly. He strips away the dogma and exposes the functional symmetry.
He poses a very logical question. How can a human being expect to be forgiven by the universe or by others if they are fundamentally incapable of forgiving?
Right.
He states that it is energetically easier to receive forgiveness if your own system is already of the nature of forgiving others' mistakes.
It's an energy loop.
Exactly. Or, let me put it this way, it's a matter of resonance. You cannot expect your biological receiver to catch a specific frequency, let's call it grace or forgiveness, if your own energetic transmitter is entirely incapable of producing that same frequency.
So if you are holding on to anger, your heart center isn't just heavy, it is functionally contracted.
Yes, and a contracted, closed-off center cannot receive.
So what does this all mean? I want you, the listener, to really reflect on a time you held on to a bitter grudge.
We've all been there.
A colleague who threw you under the bus or a friend who deeply betrayed you. Think about how that actually felt physically in your chest.
It is dense. It is heavy.
It is a physiological reality. When you hold a grudge, your chest physically tightens, your breathing becomes shallow, your shoulders roll forward to protect the heart. You are in a defensive, contracted posture.
Let's go back to our scale analogy.
Okay, the balancing scale. The heart is the fulcrum, the exact pivot point between the material world and the spiritual world.
Right.
Holding onto a trespass is like taking a 10-pound lead weight and dropping it directly into the exact center of that balancing scale.
It completely disrupts the mechanism.
It doesn't just make the scale heavy.
Right.
It actively crushes the mechanism that allows for balance. You can't achieve the harmony Osman talks about until you let that weight go through forgiveness.
That's a great visual, but we need to push the physics of it even further to understand Osman's point about energy depletion.
Okay.
A grudge isn't just a static lead weight. It is active, kinetic friction. Maintaining a state of anger requires a massive amount of constant biological energy.
Oh, wow.
It literally burns the exact cosmic energy you just spent hours downloading from the crown.
So you go up to the crown to get the voltage required to deal with the absolute exhaustion of being down here. And you need that cosmic battery charge just to have the strength to do the grueling emotional labor of forgiving someone.
That is the tragedy and the beauty of his system. The highest spiritual state is just fuel for the hardest human task.
But that brings up a really tough practical reality.
Oh, Jess?
If the ultimate goal is to live from the heart, to be loving to society, and to forgive everyone who trespasses against us, how does that actually work in a world that is objectively full of difficult people and conflicting responsibilities?
That is the big question.
Right. If I am supposed to be this open-hearted, fully charged entity, does that mean I just have to let energy vampires walk all over me?
It is the most common trap people fall into when they enter the wellness space. They conflate universal love with universal access.
Yes. They assume that if they are spiritual, they must have zero boundaries.
But Osman provides incredibly practical, almost clinical advice on how to navigate this without bleeding out your energy.
He introduces what I call the biophysics of boundaries, the oil and water concept.
This raises an important question, right? How do we reconcile the command to love all people with the reality that, as he says, oil and water cannot mix?
Yeah, he acknowledges a fundamental truth that I think is going to be a massive relief for anyone listening who feels guilty about cutting someone off. He says point blank that some people just cannot be loved closely.
And crucially, it's not because they're unlovable or inherently evil.
No, it is simply because your energies are directly opposing each other. Oil and water cannot mix.
It is a statement of physics, not a moral judgment.
Exactly. If you put oil and water in a jar and shake it violently, they might temporarily emulsify, but the second you start forcing it, they separate. Because at a molecular level, they repel each other.
You cannot be synchronous with every single human frequency on Earth.
So his advice is incredibly direct. Stay away from sources of frustration.
Right. Loving everyone universally sending them good energy, wishing them well, doesn't mean you have to mix your personal energy field with people who drain you.
If someone's frequency grates against yours, you have a master yogi's permission to simply walk away. You do not have to force the emulsion.
Because forcing the emulsion is what drains the battery. Boundary setting is fundamentally a heart-centered activity.
Think about the cognitive load of interacting with a deeply cynical, frustrating person. Your nervous system is constantly working to maintain its baseline. You are expending massive amounts of the energy you downloaded from the crown just to keep your own heart center from contracting in their presence.
It's an energetic tax you can't afford to pay.
So instead, he advises actively seeking out and connecting with people whose energy you actually enjoy.
And he makes a very grounded point. This doesn't have to be a profound soulmate-level bond.
Right. It can literally just be a casual associate whose positive advice you appreciate. Someone whose frequency just feels easy to be around, where you don't have to constantly guard your biofield.
Setting those boundaries protects your most vital center. You cannot fulfill Osman's mandates. You cannot contribute to society. You cannot heal your own physical ailments. You cannot reach that 90% optimization weight if you are constantly hemorrhaging energy trying to force oil and water to mix.
So I really want you to evaluate your own life right now through the lens of this scale.
Look at where your weight is distributed.
Exactly. Are you an all-spiritual person who leans entirely into the upper triad? You meditate constantly, you read all the esoteric philosophy, you feel incredibly connected to the universe, but your material life is in shambles.
Right. You can't pay the rent. Your relationships are chaotic.
You are a fully charged battery floating in space, connected to nothing. Or, conversely, are you an all-material person? You are living entirely in the lower triad. You are crushing it in your career, your bank account is robust, you have social status, but you are completely burnt out.
You need to recharge your internal battery.
Yes, you are running on fumes because you refuse to plug into the cosmic wall outlet. Osman's final mandate is absolute balance.
He explicitly warns against both of those extremes.
He says, do not neglect your spiritual life for the material, and do not neglect your material life for the spiritual. You need both engines running at maximum capacity.
And he expands on this concept of living with passion and purpose. Loving your life, your associates, and your contribution to society is the ultimate manifestation of a balanced chakra system.
Make decisions dictated by your heart. The heart is the steering wheel for these two engines.
Exactly.
Wow, okay. So, to bring this massive journey all together, we started by looking at the traditional assumption that spiritual progress is a ladder you climb to escape the world, treating the crown chakra as a permanent retirement home in the sky.
Right.
Then we broke down the immense gravitational pull of the lower material world, the biological reality of survival and status, and the opposing upward pull of our cosmic antennas, where we must go to recharge our depleted batteries.
Then we finally settled into Osman's radical pivot.
The profound realization that the highest achievement isn't staying plugged in. The highest mark of mastery, the true center of human mastery, is taking that profound cosmic power, bringing it back down into the dead center of the chest, and using it to be better at the very messy, deeply vulnerable business of loving, forgiving, and setting practical boundaries in the real world.
It completely redefines enlightenment. And I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over as we close.
Okay, let's hear it.
If the true goal of mastering the highest spiritual states, of spending decades meditating and mapping out 72,080s, is simply to gather enough vital energy to return to the heart and be better at loving the people in the world right in front of us, then perhaps we don't need to wait for total enlightenment to start.
Oh, wow.
What if the absolute fastest shortcut to the highest spiritual truth is simply choosing to forgive the very next person who frustrates you today?
That is a staggering question to carry with you, because maybe the ladder was never meant to be climbed at all. Maybe it was always just a scale waiting for you to clear away the weight, unplug from the drama, and finally find your center. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep your energy balanced, protect your biofield, and above all, keep your heart open.